What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the chaos. If you're new around here, I'm Ryan, and I can never leave well enough alone. So I have my 2008 Gen 4 Dodge Viper. Well, we've already done the custom front bumper. So it's a Gen 5 front bumper that's been Frankenstein and mashed together with our Gen 4, which leaves us with our custom look. And you would think that'd be enough to kind of satisfy that itch of it's custom, it stands out. But no, to me, there's one piece missing, and that's Aero. So what I've actually done is I've actually picked up a track attack front lip. So there's one of these, one on each side, front and passenger, and it just tucks up under the front bumper, which sounds all well and good if I had a true Gen 5. This just bolts right on. But being that I have the custom front end, we're going to have to customize our front Aero. But I think this will complement our track attack rear spoiler perfectly. So, but let's get in to talk about how we're gonna make this work and my approach to getting this on the car. For the track attack Aero, there's actually two variations. So the piece itself, the full carbon piece, that's the same both 1.0 and 2.0. The difference lies in the rub strips. So you'll notice on the back side, there's this kind of groove nicely cut out. That's for your rub strips. So that way, if you're coming up on a low driveway, speed bump, I don't know, anything where you might rub the front end of the car, you don't want to mess up your nice, pretty carbon. So they make, and it's ABS plastic. That way you're scrubbing this and not the carbon, but it lays up here in this groove. So it fits perfectly like a puzzle. And so you slip that into that groove. But that's the determining factor on whether it's the 1.0 or 2.0. So I've actually got the 2.0 version in my hand, but that's not the version I actually enjoy or actually like the aesthetic of. But the 2.0 has that extended plastic. It extends out so it doesn't sit flush with the lip itself. So they make a smaller rub strip that, again, it'll actually fit in the groove, but because I have the 2.0, it doesn't. So it actually fits flush with the lip itself. So that way, when you rub, you're still hitting that plastic, but as far as the aesthetic on the car, you don't see any overhang of that plastic lip. So that's the difference in 1.0 and 2.0. I'm going for that 1.0 look. The way I actually have them laid out right now, this will give you a good idea of what the TA 2.0 would look like. So you got the rub strip that actually overhangs your carbon, but then with the 1.0, you still have the rub strip, but it would just be more flush with the piece itself. So really aesthetically, you're not gonna see the rub strip at all. It'll just look like this. So you kind of got a good side-by-side, 1.0 versus 2.0. So me personally, I like the flush look of our 1.0. Here's a better look of the underside of that panel, and you can see that ridge where our rub strip fits nice and perfectly, and then you just have some bolts that actually hold it in nice and flush. So before I even got the car back from Toxic Customs with that front end conversion, my mom was already racing of things that I could add to it just to add a little flair to the front end. Well, that's what led me to the track attack front lips in the first place. But then I started looking at the prices on them, and I mean, they're just absurd for a 3-foot little flimsy kind of piece of carbon fiber. So, and I'm just gonna read you these numbers, and these are all, you can look them up yourself, verify it, whatever, but I'm using Mopar Parts Giant with the OEM part numbers for these front lips. So you get the bottom separate, and they total up to $2,884.20. So almost $2,900 for this. Crazy. And that's for the pair, one for each side. Well, you can find them cheaper. So Viper Store has their own version for $25.95. So almost $2,600 again for this. Crazy. And then Doug Shelby, they offer a version from Extreme Supercars. That's the cheapest, coming in at $2,100. But again, that seems wild to me. I don't know if that's just the Viper tax or because they are just kind of one-off type items. I'm not sure, but I picked these up used. So even used, this was $1,100. and they're not even in the best of shape, unfortunately. So crazy. So when I actually got these in hand, my mind started racing. I'm thinking there's got to be a better, cheaper way to manufacture these, especially because I actually don't want them carbon. So maybe most people do, I don't know, but like there's no other exposed carbon on this car at this point. So I just think throw in our, although it does, yeah, it does look nice and I'm a fan of carbon, it's just, I really don't want it on this car, or at least not, I would probably paint these, to be honest, just so that way they would match. But in order to do that, that's an additional cost to then take it to the shop, have it painted, everything like that. So like I said, my mom was kind of thinking, how can we do this cheaper, better, more effective, and maybe hopefully bring it to market? Well, I've never messed with 3D printing, 3D scanning, anything like that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and preface that I have no idea anything about that, but I've actually reached out to a local guy who, although he doesn't necessarily do automotive stuff, he's done center caps for cars. He's also done like the Tesla, they have the frunk. So he's actually built like a storage compartment for that frunk. So that's as far as like his automotive experience goes. But I kind of pitched him the idea, told him what I was trying to do, what can we accomplish for cheaper. So I've actually had these 3D scanned, which that was really cool. They 3D scanned this to replicate it. They're kind of reverse engineering what Chrysler produces. So we've got that 3D scanned, and he actually printed out a 3D test version for me, which I'll show you in a second. But I'm debating whether that's gonna be a better, cheaper option that some of you all might be interested in. I don't know, that's my question, and I need your help. Once we actually did the 3D scan and got the exact replica of our OEM piece, then we started kind of looking at the cost it would be to manufacture and produce a replica. And to me, there's a lot of excess material when, especially me, I just want the aesthetic portion of it. I just really want the lip, not necessarily, I don't need all this extra plastic. And again, if it's gonna be made out of a plastic type material like ABS plastic or whatever, it's gonna give a little bit. So I just need the lip portion itself and not the under tray, which got me thinking on my new Edge Mustang. I actually have a Mach 1 chin spoiler that I'll show you. And it's just a plastic flexible material, and it's just the lip itself. So I was thinking, can we replicate something like this for the Viper? And again, cost is kind of my key factor here. Is I was wanting something, there's gotta be a better way than $2,000 to $3,000 to replicate what I'm after. So I took in my Mach 1 chin spoiler for inspiration, and we've actually come up with this. So this is just our prototype, but as you can tell, we've gotten rid of a majority of the material. So we've left the lip portion and ditched the big under tray. So this should actually, and we've added some mounting locations, since before it was kind of bolting both on the top of the lip, but then on that under tray as well. So we've added some bolt hole locations to our mock-up, but I'm hoping this will allow us to replicate the look for a lot cheaper. To give you a side-by-side comparison, this is the exact replica. It's hard to tell, but just because can't fit it on there perfectly, but it's 100% replica of the stock part. So it's got the same curvature and everything. The only difference is obviously the stock piece only had a few mounting holes up here at the top, and they relied on a lot of the mounting from the actual, we'll call it the base. Whereas now there's no more base, we just have our piece. So it's gonna do all of this mounting just up here solo along the edge. So we've added a few little mounting holes for extra rigidity. In fact, I'll probably, if this goes production, probably need to add one up here as well, just so that way more points of contact the better. But it's the exact same. So I think this hopefully is going to be a cheaper alternative, and unlike the other one, this one doesn't have the rub strip, but because it's going to be made out of potentially like plastic, it's going to have some flex to it, a little give to it. So we won't need, like, yes, it might get scraped up a little bit, but it won't crack or anything or break like the carbon fiber piece. There's a little bit of wiggle to this one versus the carbon. And really a lot of my inspiration for kind of going down this route was actually this, the Mach 1 chin spoiler, because I just like the way, the ease of mounting of this thing, plus the flexibility. Like you can tell it's got some flex to it. So if we can get our Viper piece made out of something similar to this material, and it's got like a nice actual like texture to it, but this will allow, that flexibility in case we like do scrape on something, it'll give and not crack. But then two, it's not carbon, so therefore it should be cheaper to manufacture. But this was actually, Mustang part is what inspired me to go down this route. Although I already know that our test piece isn't gonna fit perfectly, I do kind of want to just mock it up just to see, like, give us an idea of what it'll look like and how much material potentially has to be like taken out of this to actually make it fit, to contour with our Gen 4, Gen 5 mashup front bumper. Funny though, because it looks like, because this is a true Gen 5 front bumper, it looks like the car that it actually came off of actually had the same style Aero already on it, because it has the holes drilled out already perfectly aligned for that Aero. So that should hopefully actually help us in this scenario to get everything lined up exactly where it needs to be. I'm gonna go ahead and jack the driver's side portion of the car up, so that way we can get under there. I'll show you where those holes are already drilled out, and then we can start kind of mocking up our Aero piece. Now that the car is lifted up a little bit, you can actually see those holes drilled out that I was talking about. So this car must have already had the Aero on there, which works out very nicely, because now that is an alignment hole for us to try to mock this piece up. I'm just gonna use some painter's tape at this point, because this little plastic test piece, I'm not sure what kind of filament they use when they do the 3D printing, but this is light as can be. So this should be perfect for our tape to hold it in place, just so we can get a visual of what this is gonna look like and how much material we need to take off of this, because this should be longer than what is actually required for our front bumper. Well, you can't laugh at me, but this is a very, very crude mock-up, and I knew it was gonna be interesting just because the bumper shape or whatever, like there's just, mine had to be shortened, so the Gen 5 is actually like a little bit longer, so like we got some funky angles, and it just, things are hitting, and again, it's very crude, but I just wanted to kind of get some idea of like what we're working with and how much work is entailed. It's rough, that's one thing's for sure, but I tried to line up, because again, this bumper was like pre-drilled, it seemed like, for these holes for this Aero, but it just doesn't, there's some angles that just I don't think look right. So I don't know if it's, I'm not really sure which direction it needs to come. Like because the front lands, I tried to start it basically from this end towards the wheel well, because I knew the wheel well wasn't gonna work out, just because that's the shortened, a lot of the material came out from this side. So I figured, okay, let's work our way from the center point of the bumper towards the wheel well, but I don't know, there's just some weird looking angles. And again, this Aero might not work at all with the shortened bumper. It just might not look right, but figured this was a starting point to see what we're working with. I'm gonna go ahead and drop the car back down, just so that way we can get an idea of like what it looks like level, and maybe that won't make it look as crazy, I don't know, but we'll slowly lower it down and get a look. I think this is kind of like our best view to kind of use your imagination and just picture that black, because that's the color I'll go with. I think I like it. I don't know. It's like I said, it's very hard to tell, but I feel like this is the best angle I got that can kind of grasp the concept of what I'm after. Or maybe you can kind of compare it to this side. So I just have things wedged underneath that OEM piece just to kind of give us a visual. But yeah, that one with the backing and that base on there, it just doesn't want to fit up there flush. So I don't know, I feel like our test piece gave us the better visual, but I want to just throw this up here just for comparison's sake. Especially if I back up just a touch, I feel like it'll give you an idea of like what it could look like. So even after seeing like our little crude mock-up, I think I actually like the way that I envisioned it in my head. I think it's actually gonna look good on the car, but you'll have to let me know down in the comments below. But I'm also at a crossroads. So I'm kind of thinking in terms of, I definitely, before we actually start hacking anything up to work on my car, I would like to know, is this something that you might be interested in if it can be manufactured cheaper than the alternative? So the cheapest, it ranges from the Doug Shelby website has them for $2,100 from extreme supercars to the complete OEM for like $2,900. So is it worth manufacturing if maybe there's only like a $700 saving? So we're gonna base everything off of the cheaper price. So if you can get a brand new for $2,100, and that's kind of like a factory replication, the full-on base and everything, you can get it for $2,100. Is it worth it if a part comes to market for around $1,100? Because that's kind of, you know, talking it out with the 3D print guy, and maybe you all know somebody that can do it a lot cheaper. Because I mean, I'm looking at like that Mach 1 chin spoiler that I showed you earlier. Those can be had for $100. So if that can be replicated for $100, I don't know why something this small couldn't be around the same price. So, you know, a few $100 for this versus $2,100 for this. So that's where I need your help. Do you know anybody that does 3D printing, or do you yourself do 3D printing and could help me out? So I have all the files for not only like our test version, like our that we were mocking up, but then I also have the 3D file for our OEM 100% replicated version. So I could send those out. Just, I don't know. I want to, if you have any leads or anything, or want to work with me, either drop me a comment below, or you can reach me at, I'll throw it on the screen as well, but ChaosCarClub@gmail.com, because I'm kind of trying to decide which route I want to go. Should I try to replicate these for the Gen 5 guys, if that's something they're interested in? And if so, like, what's the price point? What are you thinking for something like this? So I've never delved into anything like this in my life, so I'm relying on y'all's help. But what I'm actually gonna do is hang on to our mock-up piece and try to find a local Gen 5. So I'm gonna start carrying these around the car shows, kind of put some feelers out in the local boards and see if I can get a hit. So that way we can kind of go test fit, see how it works. I mean, it should be 100% identical. And I mean, like, just from test fitting on my own car, it looks like it would fit perfectly, but I want that peace of mind. I want to know that our 3D rendering, when it actually came to life, that it'll actually fit perfectly. So kind of let me know your thoughts in the comments below. So this project right now is kind of going to come to a standstill. Like, don't worry, I'm still cooking in the background. Like, things are happening, but I just wanted to throw this out there, get it on the channel, get it out into the world. So, because I need your help. But I really appreciate everybody watching. If you haven't already, make sure you smash that subscribe button. We'll catch y'all in the next one.